Tobias. So, hello everyone. I'm Ayla, and as Tobias mentioned, I live in Sarajevo. I became a FileWave member like 3 years ago and started as an agile coach and recently moved to pure role. I just wanted to state that in this role, my personal, let's say, goal is to make all our customers happy and proud that are part of our family, FileWave family. Thank you. Tien?
Yeah, good morning or good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Pierre Nicolas, sorry for my very Frenchy accent again. So working with the product team together with Ayla and Tony that most of you already know. I'm quite sure I've seen a lot of familiar names in the list, so I've been already in contact with many of you over the last years. But yeah, for those who do not know me, here are the mandatory introduction words. So I joined FileWave 11 years ago, which looks like a long time ago as a developer. So which means that you are very likely using one of the features I've done or I contributed to. So I hope you're happy with these ones. I joined the product team 5 years ago, and now I'm more focused on everything which is FileWave Central Admin and everything which is Apple related. I'm said to be the Apple file boy of the company, so I'm focused there. So that said, you've seen last week that we released 15.1, or I hope that you've seen that we released 15.1, and I'm really pleased about this release, and I really hope that you will enjoy it as well as we enjoy it. Before I start, I would like to say a big thank you for all the customers who participated to the early access program and gave us their very valuable feedback that really helps us shaping the product. And if you are interested in getting early access, just make sure that you contact us and have the version of FileWave before everyone and being able to give us our feedback. So that said, let's have a quick look at what's new in FileWave 15.1. As every year, Apple keeps us busy during summer. So that's why Tony has vacation today, because we were very busy during summer. They present new operating system in June, and they let us until early fall to be ready to have device running this new operating system managed by FileWave. So together with the new operating systems, usually there is extended management capabilities, and this year was definitely not an exception. And they brought us nice additions. So there are usually new profile extensions, DEP profile changes, some security enhancements. This year, we are able to enforce a specific operating system version during enrollment to make sure that the devices you are managing are up to date with the most recent versions. And a really great improvement to the remote wipe feature. Today, it's now possible to provide a Wi-Fi configuration profile when you erase Apple devices. So when they are completely wiped and they are activated again, they will automatically get Wi-Fi information and they will join directly your network. So this improves your security because you don't need to give Wi-Fi credentials to someone or to create a passwordless network temporary that will then be switched to a non-passwordless Wi-Fi. So it's way simpler. And then, yeah, your enrollment workflows should be much faster. Apple calls this return to service, and it's in FileWave 15.1. I'm sure that you received the notification in the many mails Apple sent yesterday. macOS 14 Sonoma got released yesterday, late for this side of the world, but middle of the day for California. And we'll talk a little bit more about macOS Sonoma in a few minutes. 15.1 brings basic support for macOS Sonoma. And last but not least, if you already installed FileWave.1, the most visible part is not iOS 17 support, but the changes we've made in Central Admin. So we refreshed completely the UI. I told you that I joined FileWave 11 years ago, and I think it was back in the days, the time where we had FileWave 6.0, and when we had the last major UI refresh. So it feels like a long time ago. Since that time, we worked on FileWave Anywhere, and the feedback we received that was the look and feel from FileWave Anywhere was great and really nice, really smooth compared to the dated FileWave Central. So now, if you are starting FileWave Anywhere and FileWave Central, you will see that they are sharing a common design, common icons, and they look very similar. So even if we haven't redesigned everything, if the changes seems very subtle, if you are using FileWave 15.1 and then you go back to 15.0, it looks like going back 10 years in the past. So Josh will show you more into details how it looks like today. I would like to take the opportunity to give a big kudos to our designers, developers, and QA, and Tony, who made this possible. And I really hope that you will like it the way I like the new changes. I'm talking about facelift and redesign. There is another part of FileWave which has been redesigned, or which is being redesigned. It's our native kiosk. And for this, I will let the mic to Ayla. Ayla, it's yours.
Thank you. So first of all, I'm thrilled to stand before you today and introduce you a completely redesigned kiosk. In case there is somebody around here who didn't have the chance to use kiosk before, I'm going to briefly explain what the app actually does. So one of the standout features of the kiosk app is the power it places in hands of administrator, in a sense of it provides administrators power to give collection of the possible file sets to be installed in different devices. But on the other side, user also have the chance to choose what they want to install out of that collection. So while I will ask Josh to share the video that I have prepared for you to see, and while you're watching the video of how technical preview of the kiosk for iOS for now looks like, I'm going to also briefly mention what are the main highlights that we have done for this release. So as you can see, the new kiosk app has undergone a comprehensive design, elevating completely user experience to a next level. We have put a lot of effort into refining the app's aesthetics, making it not only visual appealing, but also intuitive to navigate. As you can see, we have dedicated a lot of attention to filtering and searching, because we know that is a very important part for the customers to be able to easily find what they're searching for. Also, we understand that every organization has its unique identity and branding requirements. So we have redesigned Kiosk app so that admins now can customize the app's primary color and logo, which will allow a seamless integration of the app management experience within the organization, which will also support the visual identity of the organization. That part you cannot see on this video, but there is a comprehensive tutorial on how to do it on our FileWave Foundry. So we understand that all of this is going to be very important for you, because this is the phase that you are showing to your customers. So we really put a lot of effort for all of you to like it. Now, while we are in this technical preview phase, we would like to actually ask for your feedback and to invite you to help us to even improve it more. So if you haven't already downloaded, you can do it from our knowledge base. And by that, you can also give us your thoughts and opinions. You have my email written in the slide that you're going to see. Yeah, that was it regarding.
Did you want me to show the macOS one, or?
That will be later. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Don't spoil the rest of the presentation, Josh. Thank you very much, Ada. I mean, it looks really nice. I wish that we would have time to improve the kiosk much earlier, but yeah, it's better later than nowhere. So it's really great. So a few more words about the release. So we worked a lot on the admin facelift. And when we've seen all the different dialogues and assistants that we have in the admin central, we realized that FileWave has more than 30 years of existence, and we have a lot of features which may not be useful or even not used at all anymore. And yeah, sometimes less is more. So we announced a couple of versions ago that we will get rid of the support for old Android management, so the old APK side loading, which was only available for Android 7 and earlier versions. Now it will be the time in 15.2 to completely remove the support. So this will be gone in the next version. 15.1 will be the last version where we have this support. But yeah, we really can't imagine that you are still using Android 7 Nougat in production. So I will really recommend you to switch to Android Management API-based management, which offers way more flexibility and features than the old APK system. And by the way, you can still deploy your own apps, but using Google's recommended approach. I said that I will talk a little bit about macOS Sonoma. So yes, it has been released yesterday. You may not have seen on FileWave website or in the news that we are 0-day support and everything is ready. The main reason is that we want always to spend the time testing FileWave with the current version of the operating systems. And there are so many features that it's very optimistic to say 2 hours later that everything is working properly. We've seen that sometimes the release candidate provided by Apple 1 week before the release has changed, and that some items have changed in the device management area. That said, that doesn't mean that you cannot install macOS Sonoma. We've worked on FileWave 15.1 to have the basic supports based on the beta versions that were available until the release candidate to make sure that everything was working well with the versions we had. Now, one thing to know. There is one restriction Apple added in macOS Sonoma, which needs some changes in FileWave client. What it prevents is it prevents FileWave client to restart itself after upgrading. So which means that if you have FileWave 15.0 and you want to upgrade to 15.1 on macOS Sonoma, the client will not be able to upgrade itself automatically. You will have either to restart the client manually or to restart the device. Now, the good news is that we've been able to cope this change during our development, and FileWave 15.1 is already ready to cope with that for the future upgrade. So our recommended approach is upgrade first to FileWave 15.1 and then upgrade to macOS Sonoma. As I said, the only problem is that the client, the agent, will not restart itself after the very first upgrade. So which means that in case you have devices which are already upgraded to Sonoma and not in FileWave 15.1, again, it's not catastrophic. You will have to wait until the device is restarted. Until that time, the device is still managed, the client is still running. It's just that, it will not be upgraded as quickly as possible to FileWave 15.1. So that's the only thing to know about macOS Sonoma, and the remaining of the features will come in a future version. I will talk about it very shortly. Talking about upgrade, VPP v2. For those who have heard about this, so VPP is the license management system from Apple, and I think it's now 2 years ago they introduced new APIs about license management. They called it VPP v2, and we started working on it already 2 years ago. We were ready, but we know how critical license management is in the Apple world. We see that every year in the summertime, most of the schools are refreshing devices, are hammering VPP API on Apple side, and the system, which works quite well 11 months a year, starts to be struggling a little bit with the load during 1 year. So during 1 month, sorry. So we didn't want to add on top of that a change in the API. So we tested what we've done. And thanks again for early access. We've had selected customers who tested the VPP v2 implementation for a couple of time, and now we are confident that the change is ready to go. So that's why with FileWave 15.2, we will switch, with 15.1, we will switch to VPP v2. And in 15.2 or maybe in 15.3, we will completely get rid of the old implementation, as anyway Apple is deprecating it. what does it mean for you? In theory, nothing. The API is completely compatible V1 and V2. It's just supposed to be more reliable and faster than the previous one. So talking about upgrading and changing versions, a quick reminder about the different versions we support. For FileWave, it's quite simple. We support 2 versions, so which means 15.0 and 15.1. If you are still using 14.9 or more ancient version, we really encourage you to go with 15.0 or 15.1. When it comes to operating systems, most of the time we support between 2 and 3 operating systems. Of course, it depends on the vendor capabilities. If some operating systems are outdated, then yeah, we will not be able to support them. So you will see on our download page all the details. Usually we test 2 or 3 versions. That doesn't mean that FileWave will not work with older versions. For instance, if you have a device which is stuck to iOS 12, you can safely upgrade to FileWave 15.1, but we will not test it on iOS 12. And obviously, all the new features we brought to support iOS 17 will not work on iOS 12. On the desktop, you could even use an older version of FileWave client. The same, it should work, but obviously the new features which have been added after will not be available for these older clients. And last but not least, backups. We've seen, over the time that sometimes some customers are reaching out of support because they have something that goes wrong on the server. Sometimes it could be the server that misbehaves. Sometimes it could be a power supply issue, and then the server was just shut down in the wrong time, or even worse, it could be just a hardware issue and some data is gone. So just make sure that you have backups. It's not something we like to do, but that's very, really important. I just can repeat that. Josh, I let you go to the next slide, please. So we talked about 15.1. Let's see what will be next. And the first item we will address in 15.2 is moving forward with the kiosk. And I will let Ayla talk more about it now. Ayla.
Well, thank you. So as you can see, we didn't stop at improving design only for iOS kiosk, but we decided to proceed with macOS and Windows also. So we are going to give you a little bit of sneak peek of how will that look like. It will look actually very similar to iOS kiosk. So Josh, can you please start the second video? Yeah. So both of the Mac and Windows will look pretty much the same, but yeah, this, what you can see here is a basic idea and concept. So I just wanted to state here one more time that the heart of this development is actually the feedback that you provided regarding the kiosk. So we wanted to let you know that we heard your voices loud and clear, and your insights and requests have been really important to us, and we really took it in consideration while we were doing these changes. I just wanted to mention one more time that it is tremendously important to collect everything that we can to make this app as best as possible, so it can serve your purposes and make you and your customers very happy. So I wanted to state also that we are kind of changing customization of the kiosk, and I would kindly like to ask you to provide us information on what are you customizing actually, because currently you have a possibility to customize things using HTML, and that is very powerful. So we would like to know, for example, which fields are you missing to be customizable, where to find them, and so on and so forth. So if you would have a few minutes to give us that feedback, we would be very happy. And in the end, I would just like to thank you for your continued trust and support. And we look forward to bring you new kiosk app and create a better digital area for all of us.
Thank you very much, Ayla. We're looking forward to seeing the new kiosk replacing the old one on all the platforms we support. So what are we doing right now? So we are not all on vacation, so we are already working on FileWave 15.2. As I mentioned earlier, 15.1 was really focused on iOS and iPadOS, which have been released a couple of weeks before. And we know that it's very critical for you that FileWave is updated and quite shortly after the new operating systems are released. So FileWave 15.2 should come quite shortly and will address what we call Apple 4 release part 2. So it's everything which was not critical for iOS, iPadOS, or tvOS, and for things which are macOS specific. So there are, again, some profile changes. There are, again, some security changes, like the way where you could enforce disk encryption, FileVault2 during enrollment. So this will be available for 15.2. One item that Josh will explain a little bit more is that for a long time, we were using our Linux distribution for a long time, the Linux distribution we were using for server, booster, and imaging was CentOS. Unfortunately, Red Hat has changed the plans regarding CentOS, which will now be an upstream version, which means that, yeah, it's always getting the most recent packages, which is not really what you expect from a stable distribution for a server. So, yeah, CentOS, as we know today, is end of life. We cannot continue with CentOS. We thought that we would go with Alma Linux. We will not be able to do that. So we have to change our gears, and we are switching to Debian. It keeps the teams a little bit more busy than just switching to CentOS. But yeah, we are working on it. So you have some time to do the transition. Another item, which is more on the back end, on the invisible part of FileWave, it's the next item, model update improvements. I've seen some names in the list of customers who were already customers when I joined 11 years ago. And I'm not sure if you remember, but back in the days, Apple just released iOS 6, by the way, FileWave MDM was in a different product, a separated product from FileWave Server. And there was 2 installers. We were even supporting FileWave on Windows Server. So you had to install both separately. Since then, we unified both servers into one product. We integrated MDM into FileWave Server, inventory into FileWave Server, and it brought a lot of improvements in the code base and in the way we can bring new features. But still, there are still some part of the product which have not been changed over the years and which are not making use of this unification. Model update is one of those features. So earlier this year, we started to unify model updates. So we don't have one part in the old MDM side and one part in the old FileWave server. Everything will be in the same place. And that will be for us the prerequisite for all the future improvements we want to bring to model update. And I'm sure that you have a long wish list about how we could upgrade model update. So we're close to the end of the code changes. Now we know how critical model update is. It's one of the most central pieces of FileWave. And we know that if there is anything that should never fail and that should not be broken, it's model update. So even if we are ready in terms of code, we are taking our time to really test if the new version is producing the exact same result as the old one. So I would like to thank again our development teams, or QA. They are spending a huge amount of time testing and checking that both versions are doing the same thing with all the flexibility FileWave allows. And when we see the smallest problem, we go back to the table, we fix it, and we test again with everything to make sure it's there. So we are in this process, and we really hope that we'll be able to bring that to you in a near future. Won't be in 15.2, but we are still working on it. And because, yes, we have a lot of under the hood changes, but sometimes you would like to see visible changes. In 15.2, you will have the ability to set up directly MSI properties inside the MSI file set to customize completely MSI installation. So small, but hopefully in fact impactful enhancements for Microsoft management. So that's for what's coming very next in 15.2. And I hope you're not tired of my very French accent, but I will speak a little bit more about what will be next, so in 2024. So sneak peek, we discussed about the kiosk. Ayla showed you where we're at with iOS and desktop. The goal is really to complete the refresh initiative and to provide everything at the beginning of 2024. I just mentioned the model update changes. We really expect to be done again at the beginning of the next year. And the plan is to do something like we've done with VPP v2, so phased rollout, testing with some customers, making sure that everything is ready. And once we are confident that it's good, then we will release it to everyone. Now, Chromebooks. We've talked a lot about Apple. This year, they kept us very busy, but FileWave is a cross-platform product. We have Windows, we have Chromebooks, we have Android, and we have to admit that we started with lots of features for Chromebooks. We covered 90% of what Google was allowing us to do. And it's not that we forgot a little bit about Chromebooks, but Apple and Windows kept us busy too much, so we could extend Chromebooks. And as Tobias mentioned, we want to give more love to Chromebooks again. So we are planning to expand the support for that. We will start with adding the new commands, which were not available when we started Chromebook support a couple of years ago. For instance, the restart one, they provide way more options than just restart like it was in the past. The APIs to get information about the devices are now providing way more fields than it was in the past, so we can provide this information directly into inventory. We know that we have some issues, especially with annotated fields that we want to fix when you change them Google side and FileWave side. Sometimes it's the order is not correct. We want to fix this once. And we have a question for you, so feel free either to give us feedback directly here in the chat or later about the support in FileWave Anywhere. If you would be interested into that, just let us know. Talking about feedback, there is the nice QR code on the left side about Product Board, which is our dedicated tool to get feedback. So just make use of that, connect to Foundry, and you will have access to Product Board to give us your feedback. Tony spends a huge amount of time reading all your comments and providing that to the different teams. Longer terms for 2024, I'm not sure how many of you are on-prem or are using our hosting offer, but in 2023, we switched our cloud or hosting service to a completely new cloud infrastructure. And this new infrastructure gives us lots of insights about how FileWave servers behave. In all the various situations, you are as different customer. So now we have a couple of months of data about how FileWave behaves, what is working as we expect, what should be improved. And based on all this data, we started to build all the items we would like to see behave much better. So that's one of our goals for 2024. Make sure that FileWave is even more reliable and even faster than it is today based on all the data we were able to collect. On the feature side, third-party patching. We've heard this is something which is quite important for you. I mean, security, Tobias mentioned it. It's something everyone wants to have the most recent version of all the tools they are using. We don't want to reinvent the wheel and to spend 3 or 4 years doing something which will be completely out of the market and not using industry standards. We want to use what has been proven to work well. And today, we will focus on Windows. Winget is already compatible with FileWave. You have nice KB articles that allows you to do it. But yes, it's not as smooth as it should be. And I mean, yeah, FileWave is supposed to be device management made easy. If it's too complicated, then we are missing the target. So our goal is to make Winget management easier and integrated directly inside FileWave. and we'll see what we will be doing for Apple side, but will be very likely something together with AutoPKG, which is the de facto industry standard. Another item which is coming and which is getting more and more pressuring is Apple device, declarative device management. We can talk about it a little bit later if you want, but what is declarative device management? It's more or less MDM v2, so the future of MDM on Apple side. And there is one big change Apple announced this year is that it's now possible to manage software update with declarative device management. And I think it's not a surprise, or it's software update management with the MDM protocol has never been a great success. Even the old way to manage software update using the command line tool was working much better. But since it's obsolete, we are left with MDM, and it was never working as we would like. We were even able to discuss with people from Apple, and they said, yeah, it was not working the way they really expected. But now we've been told that software update is now inside declarative device management, and it's much better, and it addresses most of the issues we had with the MDM protocol. So we really wanted to start working on declarative device management, or to start working to provide declarative device management support early 2024. We weren't sure which side of declarative device management we wanted to address first. Software update won the medal to be the first candidate, definitely, because we know that it's a pain point. Last but not least, most of the organizations are these days geographically distributed. We know that bandwidth and file set delivery can be a problem if you have large file sets, and usually images are very large file sets. We are working on improving how image deliveries happens between server IVS, and to make imaging offering much better than it is today. So these are all the items we would like to provide you in 2024. So stay tuned. Last, of course, we know that Apple will release new operating system this year with the spring release and the fall release. And we know that Windows 12 is likely coming this year. So obviously, we will work on making FileWave supporting this, so you can safely upgrade your devices to the new operating systems when they will be released. So that's for FileWave in 2024. Back to you, Josh.
Thanks, Pian. Let's see. So, just continuing on more about 15.1 is, and I've mentioned this on past Alliance events, you want to get to new versions not just because of the great features and support of OSs, but there are security reasons to also get there. And 15.1 includes updated libraries, and for instance, OpenSSL is a good example. It includes 3.0.10, which addresses a security issue as compared to the version that we had. We do know that 3.0.11 released on September 19th, right when we were finishing up with this release. But we found that it affects Windows 64-bit if you're running a server service. And so it doesn't, everything we read, it doesn't impact us. We'll, of course, end up on 3.0.11 or whatever the next thing is when we do our next release, just because we try to stay on top of versions, because it's always good to be on the latest for bug fix reasons. But yeah, think about that. If you're hosted, then you'll have likely received an email already from our IT folks about our plans to upgrade you. You may have also reached out to support to ask to be upgraded sooner than the plan to upgrade to hosted. If you're on-prem, really think about getting to this new release. Even if you don't support any Apple stuff, and you don't necessarily think that on the Windows side there's something critical you need to do, it's good to do these upgrades. Okay, so this part would have been a Tony thing, and he asked me to cover it while he was out. So I will do my best with, I have a recording of his that tells a little bit of a story, and I'll speak to it. But here's the idea. So deployments, right? I hope people have looked at it, because now deployments appear both in FileWave Central and Anywhere. They add some to what associations can do. In some ways, they're different, and there are aspects that might, I don't know if I'd say take away, but if you look in the knowledge base, there's some articles that talk about considerations of deployments versus associations. And obviously the long-term goal is we would want deployments to be clearly the better path, so that associations could be phased out, right? But we're in a place now where you could use deployments and associations at the same time. You can convert associations to deployments in Anywhere. Pretty easy to migrate. And there is some functionality that we wanted to talk about that is in deployments that can be helpful. And I have a little video, and I will speak to it. Here it is. Let me make this a little bigger. Okay, so in this scenario, we're going to talk about, there's some iPad restrictions that we're sending to, kind of, we have a smart group, and you guys probably have smart groups for things like teachers versus students or particular schools. If you're not in education, then you probably have smart groups like for finance or IT, same concept. But in this video, and I'll just kind of speak to it as it goes, we have this restriction file set that is applying to a bunch of devices through a smart group, and maybe we're worried a bit that something is wrong. We're trying to troubleshoot. And with associations, in the same scenario, you might have a tougher time separating the one device from what everyone's getting. So here you'll see this is the restriction profile, right? It's associated to all students, but I don't want my specific device to get it. I want to see, like, is this thing a problem? Can I exclude it? That smart group is based on a custom field, that it's student devices with iOS, right? So I could, in theory, change the smart group and say, I don't want that iPad to be in there, but it might lose other things as a result, because maybe I have more pieces of software associated with that smart group. And I just want to make this one thing a bit separated. So what this is going to walk us through is we're going to make, instead of an association, that I'm sure that's the way most people on this assign file sets to devices, but you should really look at deployments for this particular thing. So let's see where we get to making a deployment. Right, so this is just showing that we have this other smart group. Also, they're getting other things because of the student role. So again, we're trying to do this in a way that doesn't remove everything, just removes that one thing, and I don't want to change them away from being a student, because that's going to affect more than just this one restriction profile. So, and there you go, like, they're going to lose Google Drive, they're going to lose Messenger, they're going to lose Planets and Facebook. So they're going to lose out on much more than, if I change them away from being a student. So here we go. And I might be speaking a little faster than Tony was in the video. But the next step is that we're going to show that that device has that profile assigned. Everybody knows, you go to device details, you can see the things assigned. You can see all those other things assigned, but you can see this restriction policy, and it was obviously assigned through that smart group assignment. So now we're going to kind of change modes and go the route of deployments. We're going to make a new deployment, right? And you can do this in Central or Anywhere at this point. You can manage them and edit them and create them in both. So my target is going to be, again, based on this group. See, all students. He's kind of replicating what you could do in associations at this point. Now, He hasn't yet added an exclusion, but it's at the bottom in exclusions where we're going to ultimately keep that device from getting the thing. Now, here he's going to pick that restriction policy. And then it's going to just a normal direct installation. So at this point, this deployment behaves just like the association would. It kind of would be a direct replacement of what he was doing. And he later goes in and says, okay, I'm going to delete the association because I don't need that association because I have the deployment that's pushing the same thing in the same way to all the devices, right? So no real improvement yet. But here's where the improvement comes in, because I want to make it so that that iPad does not get that particular thing, and you can see, again, that restriction policy is still here. Makes sense because the deployment is targeting the same smart group, same logic. So multiple devices have it, totally makes sense. So now we're going to go into the deployments. We're going to edit that deployment. He's going to find it. He's going to edit it. He's sorted by ID to make the newest one at the top because they get an ID number that increases. But here's where exclusions comes into play. So in this case, he's looking for that device, by name. And there it is. And he hits OK. And so now in theory, everything that's in all students is getting this, but iPad main is not. And we haven't changed anything else about that device. So it still is a student role device. So it will still get that simplex ES or elementary school smart group. It just won't get that, restriction policy. And so when we go in there, we're going to see that that student restriction is there with the status of excluded. So the fourth or fifth column there is excluded. So you know that there is sort of an association of sorts. I hate to use that word because it's really deployment, but there is a tie of sorts, but it was showing excluded and now passive. Or no, sorry, not passive, sorry. It was excluded and then went away because that kicked in and it's now not there anymore. So the great thing, the reason that you would use this is I want to figure out, oh, actually, sorry, it is passive. I got ahead of myself. But the reason you use this is I want to make sure I can test and just eliminate this one thing for this one device. And then when I see, okay, that was a problem, then I might consider changing it for everybody. But if it wasn't a problem, then I could put it, back to this device and I could kind of figure out other things. So excluding things through deployments is a way to pick apart, because I know you guys have a lot of things assigned to devices, probably in bulk through smart groups, because direct assignments would be a big pain to manage, and so sometimes troubleshooting can be tough because you want to pick away different things to find where the problems are. So this is one nice thing about deployments. So hopefully I did justice to Tony's demo there, but that is the idea. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, if I can just chime in there. Or you have something else to add?
No, that was it for that story, unless you're going to talk about the smart groups exclusion.
Yeah, so I'm really happy that we fixed exclusions, because if in the very first implementation, the decision was to use something which was kind of a hack to make sure that it was backward compatible and that it was working well with both central and anywhere without changing central too much. So with FileWave 15.0, we made exclusions a first-class citizen. Devices are aware that they are excluded, they don't install the file sets, and it works much better than before. Now, the initial design was to have anything in exclusion. So you could exclude a client, as we've just seen right now, a group, a clone of device, or even smart groups. But so that's great because it brings a lot of flexibility. You can say all the devices in that group, smart group, gets the file set, but all the ones in that smart group will not get the file set. And if they join the other smart group, they will not get the file set, and so on. So it's really flexible. But the negative design, so the fact that we remove items from what should be installed, is very complicated to achieve, and especially because of smart groups. And what's the main issue with smart groups? The main issue with smart groups is they are dynamic and asynchronous. Evaluation of smart groups occurs by default every 10 minutes. You can even increase if you have a lot of smart groups, and the smart groups evaluation takes lots of resources. So which means that at the time you hit model update, smart groups may or may not be evaluated with the most recent definition. On top of that, your desktop devices are configured to connect to the server regularly, not immediately. So which adds some latency until the devices are aware that they are not part of the deployment. So for inclusion, it's okay, because the delay just means that the file set will be downloaded and installed a little bit later. But for exclusion, we've encountered many cases where the device, just after a model update, will be instructed to download file sets, install file sets, which takes a lot of bandwidth, then installs, then shows things on the device. And a few minutes later, when the device will receive all the information about smart groups, it will be instructed that, hey, by the way, you are part of the smart group, and because you are part of the smart group, you should not have this file set. And then all the data we downloaded will now be removed from the device and have been downloaded for nothing. So we tried several things, but each time we tried to fix it, it was it would break, or not break, but make the normal use case much worse, because you would have to wait a lot until everything is evaluated, everything is done properly. So yeah, the conclusion we came to is that, unfortunately, managing smart groups in exclusion is not something that we will be able to support without super heavy and complicated changes. So what we prefer to do for now is to have something which will be a little bit less predictable, less flexible, sorry, but much more predictable. And then not apply exclusion to smart groups. So it will still work for deployments. It will still work for excluding groups and devices, but we will not apply the exclusions to smart groups in a coming version. Now, the UI, preventing that in the UI is a little bit complicated, because you can have a group and then create a smart group inside the group. So we will try to find a way to tell you that there is something there. But again, yeah, deployments in smart groups, or exclusions, sorry, for smart groups will not be applied in a very future version. So I really would like you to recommend you to not rely on this in the coming deployments that you will build. One thing to mention is that I told you that we have this long journey of rewriting model update. We have also on our plate how to redesign how file sets are deployed to devices. And here we really think that these changes will allow us to enable exclusions for smart group again in the future. So not yet, but this will come back in the future. So that was about exclusion. Use them as much as you want, but make sure that you don't rely on them for smart groups in the coming version.
Yeah, and the demo that I gave would still work in that future world, because that's where you're trying to separate one device, or you might have a group, not a smart group, but a group of devices that are exceptions to a rule, and you could still exclude them in the future. So